Well, this is the kind of religious nationalism we have seen that makes an idol out of one person, that tries to use religion to justify hate, to justify isolation, to justify saying that America is better than anyone else and doesn't have to care about anyone else. The kind
Yes.
of false nationalism that tends to lead itself also into the sinful realities of racism and ideas of supremacy. And what we saw the other day at the Capitol was what always inevitably happens whenever you seed and feed division based in race and based in class and ideas of supremacy. It has always ended in violence. You saw people the other day on the Senate floor when they broke in to the White House, to the Capitol, praying, trying to justify their hate in religious terms. That is a form of theological malpractice at best and heresy at worst. But it didn't just happen with Trump. Trump may have lit the gasoline this time. George Wallace lit the gasoline in the 60s and others have lit it. But the gasoline of division was poured out. We saw it happen with Richard Nixon with the Southern strategy. They came up with a deliberate plan to divide the nation. They actually said we're going to divide the nation, and we're going to use that division will come from the corporate suites, the political offices, and pulpits. This the kind of religious
I didn't know
nationalism
that.
that tries to
I know
justify the
Nixon
Klan,
did a lot
justify
for the
racism,
environment, and
justifies
there was an
hate. And it is
anti-science,
very dangerous because
anti-education
what it does not do is
resistance against
deal
those
with
things.
the
But maybe it was
actual
already planned before.
fundamental foundations of faith, which are love and truth and grace and mercy and justice and treating your neighbor right and lifting a nation from the bottom. The Bible is clear. It is very clear. That nations are judged by how they treat the least of these when it comes to the precepts of God.
Yeah.
Reverend, was something I've always appreciated
Quran,
about your
the
work is your
Quran
emphasis
is the
about healing the
same.
class divide in our country. One of the things that we've been talking a lot here about on the show recently is a crisis of, I mean, almost quasi religiousness that we see in a lot of people who believed in Trump, not necessarily in terms of his political agenda, but as kind of this like mythological figure, as you referred to, almost QAnon type religious belief. How do you get out of that as a country? I mean, it's not, many of these people are secular, or at least, in terms of their own religious practice, it's not like they're attending services or anything. What can we do as a nation?
Well, it's actually strange that in this nation, moments of pain have actually led to our deliverance from this kind of thinking. First of all, we have to acknowledge that this is not the first time we've seen what someone like Trump has done. It has a deep history. It's un-American based on our constitutional values, but it's not non-American. But what I've been thinking about this. Um, there is something called death pangs, Pangs, and there's something called birth pains. And over in our history, moments that we thought might be death pangs turned into be birth pains. For instance, the Civil War was a death, it seemed to be, it was deadly. But out of that came the birthing of the Reconstruction
Yeah.
movement, and a lot of people's minds were changed. The assassination
It's a
of
lot
Abraham
of
Lincoln was a
songs like
horrible
metal.
death pang, but it turned into a birth pain
Destroy to
of the
rebuild,
13th, 14th, 15th Amendment.
etc.
The Great Depression and after the Gilded Age and
Lots
after
of
a
suffering or
pandemic
whatever.
was a
Personal
death pang, but it turned into
hardships
birth
often
pains
lead
of the
us
New
to be
Deal and
stronger,
and
better
opening up
people,
the military with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the Civil
realize
Rights Movement.
things,
If you think about it,
etc.
George Wallace, segregation yesterday, today, and tomorrow, the death of Kennedy, the death of 4 little girls in a church were death pangs, but it turned into birth pains of new ideas of freedom. And so one of the things we have to do is claim this moment as a moment of birth pains. And how do we get people changed? What if in this moment we implement a full and just comprehensive COVID relief and people see that the extremism may lie to you, but it won't help your
Yeah.
life?
Previous
What if we
video I
lift
watched is just
140
about
million
how
people who were poor and low wealth before
possible
COVID, 8 million
relief
more after
checks might
COVID
be
since
delayed
May out
until
of poverty?
March,
What if we raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour
and that they
and
should have
helped
had a
62
COVID
million
relief
people in 39
plan
million
and
families?
bill ready to
What if we
roll
opened health care
Day
for 80
one.
million people who are uninsured or underinsured? What if this very moment of so
I
much
don't know. Someone's
pain, these
suffering.
pangs, it actually turns to
People,
pain, birth pain,
poor
and
people
we
right now.
institute a
A
third
lot of people
reconstruction,
hurting
and we
very
lift those
much.
from
So,
Appalachia to Alabama, California to the Carolinas, Michigan to Mississippi, the fields of Kentucky to the mountains of,
Kansas
the
just
mountains
had
of
more
Kentucky to the fields of
unemployment
Kansas. That
filings
could actually
past
change
week
people's
than
minds.
they've had in a
What
long
if we say
time. For
this is
example,
not a moment of liberal and
some
conservative or
people not
centrist
getting
or Republican or Democrat?
unemployment,
What if
whatever.
President Biden said
State
yesterday,
having
enough of us?
problems.
Remember, he
People
talked
not
about
getting
things today.
unemployment
He
from like
also said
9
the other day,
months, trying to
what
get
if
it
enough of us
5 months.
embrace establishing justice? Our
Got
Constitution says
kids to
the
feed,
only way to ensure domestic tranquility is to start
bills
with
to
the
pay.
establishment of justice. That's the Constitution. And what if we take that serious and enough
And
of
what
us
happens
believe
when
that all of these death pangs, these things that are trying
the
to
renter's
undermine and destroy
forgiveness,
democracy, might actually
or
become
whatever it's called,
birth pains
come to an
that
end?
birth us into a deeper expression of democracy and toward a more perfect union. It has happened before, and I believe it can happen, and it will happen this time.
Happened before, and of course, nothing is ultimately inevitable. It requires struggle. It requires good people to come together in service of that work. How will you be, and how should we be judging the work of this administration?
Well, we have put out a 14-point first 50, first 100-day agenda, saying to call for the healing of the nation, saying that if we're going to heal, it has to be more than kumbaya and nice words and pats on the
Yes.
back. It must be policy that lifts from the bottom, that proves that everybody has a right to live. And so we'll be measuring the administration this way, but not just measuring, we're going to be helping. We're going to start Moral Mondays again in February. Every Monday, thousands of people around issues and calling legislators and Congress people and pushing them, because Biden and Harris can't do it alone. We're planning now for a mass Poor People's Assembly Moral March on Washington as soon as COVID releases us. We did it last year virtually, and 2.7 million people showed up because people want their issues to be addressed. You know, 73% of Republicans want health care. 60-some% of Republicans want living wages. We must show people a public policy way out. And what we're going to do is every piece of public policy, we're going to lay the Constitution on top of it and say, does it establish justice? Does it provide for the common defense? Does it promote the general welfare? Does it guarantee equal protection under the law? And then we're going to lay our deepest religious values on top of it. Is it rooted in love and justice and mercy and grace and truth? And that's how we're going to judge whether it's a good piece of public policy or a bad piece of public policy. And we've asked the president, when we met with the domestic team, when you put a policy forward, like his COVID relief, go before the people and say, if this passes, this is how many black people will be helped. This is how many white people will be helped. This is how many Latinos will be helped. This is how many people in Appalachia will be helped. This is how many people in Alabama. Tell the people what that policy will do. That's the way you undermine the lies of extremism that will quickly say this is radical, this is socialism. Undercut that by actually laying the truth out before the people. And I bet you we will find enough people who want this nation to ultimately be one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, and under God.
Reverend Barber, we know that you have a very busy day, and we're so grateful for you making some time for us. Thank you so much. Great to see you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Of course. And we'll have more rising for you after this.
That was good, but yeah. I'm not the judge of all. Hopefully Biden does good.